I think of the plant medicines as being incredibly sophisticated and incredibly intelligent in how they address the subtlest energies in your body. They're going to adjust your brain chemistry, which is molecular. They're going to change your vibrational state, which is atomic. People say that they feel like they get like a defragmentation in the psyche. The idea is to help you go into the most relaxed, most supported space so that you can really relax into it and turn our fear off.
Welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurs in Recovery. I'm your host, Jesse Harless. How are you all doing today? I'm really grateful that you were here for another episode. If you would take a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube and leave a review on Spotify or iTunes, this just helps more people to reach the show. Or don't do that. Just enjoy today's episode. Today's episode, I'm really excited about. This is someone who I've wanted to have on the episode for quite some time, and the time has come. Today's episode is with Hamilton Souther. Hamilton is the founder of Blue Morpho retreats and facilitation trainings. This was just a fantastic episode about all things ayahuasca and his journey and his story. It's just really fascinating to be able to dive into someone's world who has been in the medicine for, I think, over 20 years. And so I really hope you enjoy this message that Hamilton brought through. We also talked about the state of the world towards the end of the episode. So stick around for the whole thing to hear more about AI and the use of plant medicines and the direction we're going and Hamilton's take on that. So I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I did, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Hey, Hamilton, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jesse, thanks so much for having me here.
Yeah, it's a real honor to have you on the show. I feel like this was manifested. You don't know this, but I had a list of people that I wanted to have on the show for the last year or so. And out of nowhere, LinkedIn popped up and it said, you wanted to connect with me. And I'm like, wow, I really appreciate Source, Universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and just that synchronicity. And now here we are. And I'm really excited for our listeners because I don't know if people have taken the time I have to listen to you. I've listened to hours and hours and hours of you on other podcasts. You know, it's pretty rare to have someone like you with this type of experience in the plant medicine world. Also as an entrepreneur too, you know, someone who's an entrepreneur who's running multiple businesses. And so it's an honor to have you here. Thank you for showing up. And welcome to Entrepreneurs Recovery Podcast.
Awesome. Well, it's great to be here and happy to share whatever wisdom I can about both entrepreneurship and plant medicines and how the two overlap.
Yeah, I'd really like to get into your story. I always like to get to know someone better, and I'm really curious about your story in particular. And maybe you can give us, you know, at a high level, the Hamilton before you became a shaman and it's been in the Amazon for decades and doing all the work that you've done in the 1,000+ ceremonies that you've done yourself, with yourself and, you know, thousands and thousands serving others. Before you became that Hamilton, I want to get to know that person a little bit and what led you to this path.
You know, I had grown up in Silicon Valley, and it's a really competitive time. Everything was prep for the future and, you know, your life plan and how that Western culture is supposed to unfold. And with it came, you know, I think a pretty common at that time series of positives and negatives, but it also came with trauma and, you know, depression and kind of really lower mental states and a bit of a party culture. I kind of made it through high school and into college, and my life didn't really have a spiritual background in any kind of way, especially I had no really plant medicine background. And I went through just a series of experiences really late in my university years, including losing a mentor in my final year of the university. It was a huge loss for me and a huge trauma. And the year after I graduated, I wasn't sure what to do because the life that I had built for myself collapsed. That entire Western life had collapsed. And my mom actually said to me, you know, if you don't want your life anymore, don't know what to do with it, give it back to spirit. And so that's what I did. I didn't think anything would happen. I just, from the heart, gave my life back to spirit. And this awakening took place that was very natural, very sudden. And in it, I became aware of a kind of thinking and a kind of awareness that just had been outside of my frame of reference in my early childhood. And so I went from this place of kind of darkness and despair, kind of internal suffering in the form of depression, to this great awakening and an awareness that something much, much bigger was happening than my little bubble and worldview. And it was about to take over my life and send me in a whole new direction. And so that was the me before: hyper competitive, scholastic, really high achiever in every space in my life, extreme athlete in a number of different sports, and then quickly a deep dive into there's something much more profound taking place here of Earth. It's connected to evolution. It's connected to plant medicines. It's related to the consciousness space and consciousness arts. And in my early 20s, I was thrust into that.
Yeah, that's fascinating, that path. It sort of reminds me of many people I've heard, even like Eckhart Tolle and some of these people who have had these awakenings. And right before that, it was incredible depression, incredible darkness. And I've heard that many times. I've experienced that myself. And it's really interesting to have that happen, when it feels like it's the end, and then that shows up. So how did you go from that to the Amazon jungle and serving? I mean, you started doing this, was this in the 90s or was it the beginning of the 2000s?
Beginning of the 2000s. Yeah. I ended up coming to the Amazon rainforest in late 2001, early 2002. And the way it happened was really, a story for the ages. I was in the US that year after I'd graduated from college. I was doing meditation and just checking in and starting to learn a little bit more about what was going on. And in the meditations, I just had this really intense awareness that I was supposed to go to Peru, and was told so by the meditations themselves. I thought it was impossible that I needed to go to Peru. I didn't know anyone in Peru. And it was just very clear, including direct guidance to, go get a ticket, and even told what website to go through and the price that the ticket would be before I went. And it was within budget. And so I had been given those direct signs that I needed to follow. And it really was like following the breadcrumbs. And so I went to Peru on September 10th, 2001, and I flew to Cusco looking for my apprenticeship on September 11th.
And so you arrive in the Amazon, and what was it like was your first ayahuasca session, was it deep into the rainforest, or was it at a retreat center? Like what was it like that first journey? And did that tell you, okay, this is the way? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, it's exactly right. My very first journey was first a journey into the forest. We went from the city of Iquitos, 24 hours overland, up the Ucayali River, and then into this little tributary past indigenous tribes, and then even further upriver past inhabitants. And along the way, we had met an ayahuasquero that the guide knew, and he agreed to host a ceremony for me. And so he just jumped in the canoe with us, and we went and we collected the plants from the forest itself. He knew where they were in that part of the forest, and we made ayahuasca together along the bank of a river for the ceremony. And it was just that ayahuasquero and myself. It was just the two of us sitting on the bank of a river underneath this tiny thatched little roof that had no floor, and the moon and the stars. And we sat down and drank ayahuasca. And in the visions that I had that night, the final vision was that I was actually going to stay there in that location. I was going to live there, and I was going to train. And I didn't know what to make of that vision at first, but it just didn't go away. And it turned out that location that I was in was 500 meters from the house of the greatest Grand Master in that part of the forest. He was a gentleman by the name of Julio, who was, over 80, 85 at the time. No one knew his real age. He was just an elder. and a true master ayahuasquero, médico vegetalista, palero, sananguero, toero, mapachero. He had 5 disciplines that he was a master of. And it turned out that he became my mentor and teacher, and just truly honored that that first ceremony led me to him that far out in the forest.
Yeah, and I'm curious how, like, as a Westerner, how did that work? Where they let you in to have these experiences, which I'm sure you went through a lot of initiations before they were passing the torch, so to speak, for you to serve medicine. So, what was that process like? Was there like 1,000 sessions or 100, or what was it before they? What was that like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, at first it was taboo to teach somebody that was out of the family bloodlines. And so I wasn't just accepted. I had to live in the forest there with the people for over a year and a half. I had to be elected to be allowed to be in that part of the forest. I lived there the whole time. I built my first house by hand with the locals. I had to learn how to walk, talk, canoe, fish, hunt, and have an agricultural plot just to survive. And so I think of it as, a great apprenticeship just in how to survive out there in the forest. There's no other support. There's no telecoms, electricity, even roads that don't exist. It's just tiny little rivers and footpaths, that game trails. So I had to learn how to navigate the forest and live out there at first. I was 23 years old, 24 years old. And then I finally got accepted into formal apprenticeship. I had to get tested to go through tests of virtue to get accepted into apprenticeship. And then I was taken into the trials and tribulations of the traditional course of apprenticeship. That looks like a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies, averaging anywhere from 100 to 150 ceremonies a year. They do at least 6 to 8 months of dieta, of fasts and rites of passage during the year as well. And it's year-on-year training until you graduate as a maestro, when they allow you to serve medicine yourself. And then once they give you that title, they finally then and only then tell you that that's only the beginning, and a new training starts, which is how to be a maestro, or they call it a maturation phase. And that entire training went on for 14 years.
Wow. Yeah, 14 years. So that kind of, it leads me to the question of the facilitators today and some of the people who are serving medicines like ayahuasca. You had over a decade of training, and I'm curious to, you ended up starting Blue Morpho, which we'll get into, but what is it? How long would you recommend or suggest before someone can serve ayahuasca, since you went through like such an interesting initiation? And so what are some of the time frames? How many years should they have been receiving the medicine before they're serving? And just kind of curious your thoughts on that with your business. And
yeah, well, what we're seeing in the world is that a lot of people are serving with no training and experience at all. And there's a belief that the tea does everything. And, that's fundamentally different to what I was taught in the forest. I was taught that you have to go through extensive training. It's the reason why there is apprenticeship inside the ancestral lineages, and that the apprenticeships don't have a specific amount of time associated with them, because they're about the quality and the efficacy of your training and your practice. It's such a different world to think about, like a urban city ayahuasca ceremony where everyone's going to go back to their normal life afterwards, and it was a spiritual opportunity to receive some spiritual healing, compared to living as a medico vegetalista in the forest. When you are the medico vegetalista, you learn how to use the forest like your pharmacy. And people who are really sick in your tribe or your community come to you needing a doctor and needing healing and needing support. And if you can't provide it, it could be, both life and death risk for them and you, because you weren't able to help the person. And so there's no room for fraud or charlatanism in that. You have to provide at the utmost a responsibility, the support for the people there. And you go through extensive training and learning how to diagnose, dose the plants, use different kinds of plants, and also the visionary and healing arts that take place inside the ceremony, which come through the Icaros and the training in the visions themselves. It's not left to chance, and it's very serious with extreme responsibility, which is very different to what we're seeing, in the Western treatment of ayahuasca. My personal feeling is that to be trained well enough to hold a ceremony, you have to go through enough personal experience under the guidance of other maestros that covers all of the potential basis for everything that could potentially go wrong in that ceremony, so that everybody else is safe and you can guarantee their safety. So you have to know how to handle from the simplest problems, like someone's having a difficult experience, to the most extreme problems, like somebody has gone into some kind of physical health problem in the ceremony that might have nothing to do with the ceremony itself. Like, what happens if somebody just naturally goes into cardiac arrest, completely independent of the fact that they drank ayahuasca, just like it happens when people drive every day or they're at work every day. How do you handle these kinds of situations? You don't have access to 911. You don't have access to any other kind of support staff. And you have to know how to be able to handle those situations. So I think in the West, you're looking at a minimum of 2 to 3 years of training. If you trained every day and could dedicate yourself to that all the time under the guidance of people who really know, you would have a minimum of somewhere between 250 and 500 ceremonies of experience. You would have had at least one cumulative year of dieta experience and the purification rituals. You would have worked alongside with your teachers with at least 200 to 500 patients of people that you would have worked with to see enough diversity to understand. And even then, you would be barely touching the surface of the experience necessary to really hold the space of this medicine.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's just really, really profound. And as I get deeper into this space and I meet different people serving different types of psychedelics or different medicines, one of the things I've noticed is there's a lack of experience with what can happen at different doses, or just in general with psychedelics. They may be familiar with the small dose or maybe even a macro dose of one medicine they're actually serving, but they're not familiar with other psychedelics or what could happen with one psychedelic like ayahuasca and all the different ways that it can show up. And, I know the first time I did ayahuasca, which was the only time, which was one time here in Costa Rica, I had at one stage of the journey a really challenging moment on that first cup. On the first cup, my nervous system is sensitive. I have a sensitive nervous system, and that first cup hit, and boy, was I in a challenging experience to begin with before I sort of broke through. And the person's there, noticed and came up to me and was trying to talk to me, but I just think of all the people who maybe don't have the fortitude or the experience or resilience that I have to maybe push through and make something of a situation. And, I can't even stress how important it is, like safety. And I think that's the next thing is, the safety of keeping people so that they can go back to their lives. I mean, people are coming back to America and they're coming back to their job and their careers and their family or their businesses. And to throw someone back into that environment after spending a day, a week, 2 weeks in the jungle drinking medicine, I mean, it's so important, what you're saying. And I have a lot of respect for what you do. And that's why I was really grateful you've come on the show, is so that I can hear that. So it's not like I'll do 3 ceremonies and I'm serving ayahuasca. There's an initiation, clearly.
The initiation in the Amazon is intense. And there's also a nature of rites of passage where you have to learn how to have the energetic integrity within yourself to be able to stabilize the entire ceremony for everybody else who's there. And now with this great psychedelic renaissance happening, we have to understand the nature of the different plants and the kind of psyches that people have if they go through psilocybin ceremonies, wachuma, ayahuasca, cannabis, large dose cannabis experiences, and then the synthetics. I'm hearing people all the time utilizing MDMA, MDA, ketamine, 2CB, and a variety of others. And there's a huge movement inside the biotech industry to synthesize and create new forms of psychedelic medicines as well. It's a growing field, and the reaction that people have to different kinds of plant medicines after having been introduced to a variety of psychedelics is also a question. Some people have more muted vision. Some people are now more sensitive or hypersensitive. And I also think you have to be very careful that like you mentioned about the sensitivity of an individual. The local way here in the Amazon is to give somebody a flood dose, just maximum saturation. And they're not accustomed to working with people that might have more sensitive psyches and a more sensitive energetic system coming from a Western developed culture. I found that the people here can handle a much larger dose of ayahuasca without a problem. They consider it a purgative. They don't go deeply into the visionary experience in terms of their articulation of it. They all have visions, and they talk about the plant medicines bringing them healing, but they don't have such a developed interpersonal narrative or ego in terms of how they relate to these things. And I've thought over the years that a lot of Westerners are being introduced to the plant medicines with doses that are much too strong for them. And it's actually creating psychosis and certain kinds of trauma. And I think when somebody's looking to be introduced to these, they need to find people who know how to work with, people being initiated to the medicines or experiencing them for the first time, and who are willing to understand their sensitivities and work with them to find a dose that is, a good introduction to the experience itself. Like I found for Blue Morpho, our first introductory experience for a lot of people is what would be considered less than 1/3 of a dose, and maybe just a little bit over a quarter of what would be considered one full dose of ayahuasca. And it's more than enough for people to have their first experience.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're saying that, because I know in my nervous system and my journey into this path of psychedelic medicines, I'm sensitive. I'm sensitive to medicine, and I know that about myself. And it could be because of past PTSD. It could be whatever reason it is that there is that experience for me. But regardless, that's my experience. And so I might be better off, like you said, with a smaller dose. And that was going to be my next question. With the work you do at Blue Morpho and the experiences and the retreats there, I'm really glad to hear that I'm not going to come there and it's going to be 4 cups of ayahuasca and you got to fill them up to the top. It's going to be based on a relationship you've built with me prior. So maybe we can talk about that process of what is it like to sign up for a retreat, and how many nights and days is it of ayahuasca, and what is the preparatory process like? And then maybe a little bit about what that experience is like. I'm curious.
Well, first, in terms of signing up for a retreat with us, you come to our website and you find the dates and the programming that you think most suits your interest. And we have retreats that are pure ayahuasca. We have hybrids that are ayahuasca and San Pedro. And we have retreats that are pure San Pedro. We also have signature experiences, which are longer immersions. Typically, those are not somebody's first experience into the plant medicines, but it's people who want to come and have a much deeper and sort of exponential experience. And that will take place over 3 to 5 weeks, depending on the programming. And so somebody comes and they find the program that looks right for them, and they, sign up for it. We have medical screening, and then there's an introductory call. We have people who work with us who are long-term plant medicine enthusiasts in our community, and they support you in having a conversation to really understand your intentions, what's bringing you, what your needs are, what would best suit you. And they work with you to devise a program that's bespoke and unique just for you. That would be the best way for you to go through this experience: preparation during the experience itself and the integration afterwards. I think that for one plant medicine retreat with us, it's a year-long process. So it's not just you come for a retreat and you go home and it's over, but rather you come for you have a preparatory experience, you come for a week or two of retreat, and then there's going to be at least 6 months to a year of integration on the other side of the retreat experience. And so we're looking for people who are committed to their personal growth and development, really getting the most out of the experience, that are investing in not only their healing, but becoming a positive ripple effect for everybody else who comes into contact with them after these experiences, and to understand that there is a tremendous transformation that happens on the other side of these medicines. The preparation starts for some people a month or 2 months before coming. And for some people, if they're really healthy and they're ready for the experience, just a couple of weeks before. But if you're on medications that you need to be weaned off of, we have programming to help you go through the weaning process. We'll align with your medical care practitioners to help you get off medications that are contraindicated to the plant medicine experience. And we've never had a doctor deny somebody the opportunity to come. If there's any borderline question over your health or well-being, we'll require a doctor's note. And every time people have asked for those, if they've been a candidate, they've received it from their doctors. And so we'll work directly with you to be able to know that you're a proper candidate and healthy enough for the experience to be able to receive the medicine. Usually 2 weeks before coming, we ask that everybody cease all other substances that they're taking, unless it's, non-psychoactive supplements. We ask you to stop all alcohol use if you can, start reducing the intensity of heavy fats, fried foods, heavy meats and stuff from your diet. We ask that you start to clean things up as best that you can, and prepare for the experience through relaxation exercises, grounding exercises, and just becoming aware of your breath. These are all going to be rituals that are going to be very important during the ceremonial process itself. So we're guiding you to setting up to have the most profound, impactful, and positive experience possible. Then we come into the retreat week itself. Even nowadays, it's because of the nature of the environments that we go through, there's some, detoxing that happens early on in the week. So even if you go through 2 weeks to a month of detox before coming, as soon as you get into the plant medicine, there is going to be that process of opening up into it. So we tried to ease everybody into that part of the process through the first 2 days. I think of the plant medicines as being incredibly sophisticated and incredibly intelligent in how they address the subtlest energies in your body. They're going to adjust your brain chemistry, which is molecular. They're going to change your vibrational state, which is atomic. People say that they feel like they get like a defragmentation in the psyche. That is, in the true energy of the body itself that people, talk about. And so the idea is to help you go into the most relaxed, most supported, held space so that you can really relax into it and turn our fear off. The fear vibration in us is an agitation. And so we prepare you so that you can turn off fear and go as deep into the medicine as suits you. Now, there's this whole culture about macro dosing, hero dosing. That doesn't mean going as deep into the medicine. If you have a big dose and you start to get tense and tight, you start to energetically fight the experience, you don't go any deeper. You get stuck right there. You could put 10 more grams of mushrooms on it or another 2 cups of ayahuasca, and it's not going to help you go any deeper at that point. The depth actually comes from how relaxed you can be and the depth of the trance that you can access, the calmness in the mind through the energy through the body, the amount of flow state that you can create. And so we work on really supporting everybody in the first half of the retreat to even have an understanding and experience of those words. There are breathing exercises that we do together, grounding exercises that we do, and we learn how to turn fear off, open our hearts again, like the way it was before we had a mind that convinced us to turn them off. and we get everybody into an awakened state of consciousness. We help them purge the toxins that they come with in the first half of the week, and it really prepares for the second half. The second half of the week is a great expansion into the fulfillment of everyone's intentions and a real deep dive into consciousness and spirit and this just great mysticism that we're all part of, this great mystery that is the earth itself and the cosmos and, what people think about when they think about source or spirit or God. We take them into the direct experience of that so that it doesn't have to be theoretical. And then every week forms a really deep bond with everybody. And if you like what we're doing and want to be a part of it, we have a very active community. And we think integration starts in community. And so we have a really strong community-based integration program, and everyone's welcome to participate in that. We teach everybody, if they want to do integration on their own, it's a choice, but we teach them my integration process. I've been doing this now for over 20 years, and I work in plant medicine year round. And so I have to continuously integrate to be able to stay grounded and well in the nature of my practice. So to give you an example, last week we held 2 ayahuasca ceremonies and 2 San Pedro ceremonies. Now tonight I go into an ayahuasca ceremony followed tomorrow by a San Pedro ceremony. So I've been integrating all week. We're going to now go into this, and I'm going to integrate into next week, and next week there will be another ceremony. So we teach everybody my own integration practice. And then if you want further help, we have week by week integration as a community. We go through a lecture. The week after that is a mentorship session. The week after that is Q&A, and then a group ceremony. And we do that online. And then if you want individual coaching, integration coaching, we work with professional integration coaches that are also in our community that have gone through our education and programming, know the kinds of practices that we do, and they are stellar coaches. And we continue to meet more integration coaches and work with them and train them to also support. And so that process will go on for somebody for 6 months to a year after the retreat. And that's the way that we found that they have the greatest results from the experience, as well as the most life benefit that they get.
Yeah, thanks for that thorough explanation. It's good to hear that it's 6 months to a year, because my first experience, which was ayahuasca, and then it was peyote about a day and a half later, it was a big one, to say the least. And that integration process definitely was at least 8 to 12 months easy. In fact, after I did that experience, and I want to talk a little bit about my experience too, but when I had that experience, I didn't want to do any medicine at all. Like, I came back home from Costa Rica back to New Hampshire, and I was like, I'm good. I don't need to do anything. And it wasn't out of fear. It was like my body, my system, my energetic body, my physical body, my mental body was just like, you're good right now. This is good. And I felt very cleansed, very detoxed, very connected to source, God, whatever you want to call it, more than I ever have been. But I do want to also say that during that first cup of ayahuasca, I ended up having a challenging experience with a particular time in my childhood before 10 years old. And I got stuck in a loop. So I drank the cup. I had the walking around the fire, dancing, laid down in about 20, 30 minutes. And then at first it was okay. And then it just really intensely started to go to this certain age of a certain particular trauma. And I just was stuck in that loop. It was so intense. I couldn't really find a way around it. So instead of getting around it, I just stayed with it. And I just said, I had to surrender to watch and observe the vision. And it was super intense. And I think a lot of people listening, especially post-COVID, may be challenged with depression, anxiety, nervous system dysregulation, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. And I think for me, my whole journey is the journey of the nervous system. I've been working on the nervous system for as long as I can remember. And it's not, I don't look at that as a punishment. I just look at it, this is my work. And that first cup showed me all these things. So how does one, when it comes to ayahuasca and the experience and mental health, what types of benefits have you seen with trauma healing, PTSD? Because that's where it went. It went to the complex trauma. It went to this place that I didn't access with decades of, I'm a trained therapist, but without my therapists, I worked with coaches, spiritual guides, didn't access it until the medicine accessed it. So what is it? Why is ayahuasca so effective with PTSD, mental health? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, first, I just want to touch upon the idea of the spins. And so if anybody, whoever listens ever finds themselves in that situation, there are three ways we know to get through that. The first is to understand that there's something you can do. You don't have to just spin in that state. And often it'll be a series of visions that go around and around, and you find yourself in that, looping experience. So one thing you can do is interject something into the loop. You can actually force a thought. Like if you're ruminating and you can create a thought, you can create a thought that disrupts that, and you might have to do it a few times. Another is to go deep into your heart. Find your heart and the sensation of your heart and the awareness of your love, and go deep into it. And another one is to invoke source or God or the wholeness of the universe. So give that a try if you ever find yourself in that situation, and it can be really grounding, supportive, helpful to get out of it. I think ayahuasca is so profound in the healing of mental trauma because it's working in three key components in us at the same time. The first is scientific studies that have been done now that show its effect on brain chemistry. And it creates a balancing of the serotonin levels in your brain. It removes the effect of oxygenation on the ends of your neurons and synapses, and it starts to re-regulate and rebalance the relationship of your other neurotransmitters. And so that's just an incredible molecular reconfiguration of your brain over a short period of time. It's also been shown that it is creating not only bidirectional communication through the brain, but omnidirectional communication. So that's creating new neural pathways in a very short period of time that is brain awakening. And often from the experience of trauma that we have, it really roots a certain kind of patterning in our neuronet. So you have this great cocktail of brain chemistry that's being re-regulated, and at the same time, your brain is now able to start to map in through and around the trauma. The second component of it is a psychological component. And many people talk about confronting within themselves things that they didn't have an opportunity to confront when they were in the traumatic experiences. And so there's this psychological component to the journey. Many people express fixations that they move into, awarenesses about certain kinds of traumatic experience, the unearthing of memories that they didn't have before. But there is this tremendous psychological journey. And what I love about it is that often in it, people will say that it came to a natural conclusion. So not only did they have the journey that was psychological, but in it, something changed. They had an awareness, they transcend something, they defeat something within themselves, and they move on. And they know that it's representative of a healing state. And then the third is a component that's spiritual or mystical in its nature. And it's hard to pin down, and a lot of people use a lot of words to try to describe it, but it's been now described millions of times in various different ways. And it fundamentally awakens you to a much deeper connection to yourself, your nature, the earth, the cosmos, a great intelligence that's there, a great shared consciousness that's there. And many people describe that as source, oneness, wholeness, or God. And with that, there's a great reset that takes place. And many people describe it as the life they had before that awareness and reset, and many people describe it as the life after. And, that's very unique to ayahuasca. I haven't heard that same level of support in all three arenas at the same time And it's, pretty common in ayahuasca that way. I love all of the visionary medicines for what they are, but that's pretty unique to ayahuasca, and I'm grateful for it. It happened to me very early in my life, in my 20s. And ever since then, my life has not only been exponentially better, it's just also made sense.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for that part that we just recorded. And this would definitely be a re-listen to episode for me. And I had that experience that you described actually in the medicine with the first cup. It came on extremely challenging with that loop of that particular memory. And then I was able to move through it after surrendering, because I felt like it went on for such a long time. And I sort of found a way to navigate what to do. And then on the second cup is when I had this incredibly deep mystical experience. And then on the third cup, I ended up having this massive purge of the first cup's trauma that I was holding onto in that loop. And I was watching myself purge, and I felt like I was throwing up the stars of the universe. It was a very grand, mystical. It wasn't like bad. It was complete opposite ecstasy. But I could recognize I was purging that particular memory that was traumatic. And then I had this sort of, my eyes could see deeper into the jungle. It could see deeper into the stars. Like I could see grids, and whether that was hallucinating or not, I don't care. It was a visceral, real experience that I could see things I couldn't see on my normal awareness. And so, yeah, what you just described is sort of the arc of that first experience. And, it was so profound. I mean, that was in 2022 here in Costa Rica, and I still haven't come back to the medicine. I have used all types of other medicines, and some very big medicines like 5-MeO DMT, but I'm definitely being called back to explore, just because of what you just described. It just reminded me. I remembered that experience was that, and that's so important. And I think many people in my life, coming from the world of, some are from entrepreneurship, but many are from a place of stuckness. They're stuck in a certain place, and I feel like a lot of times, there's this opportunity to get unstuck. And if you really want to go there in a really profound way, I don't want to send people to places that I don't feel safe about the place or the people. And so I'm really grateful that we have connected and we're talking about all this stuff, because this is the type of relationship I want to have with you and Blue Morpho, is to be like you have an ambassador to help people to find this. Because my number one thing is safety. I've had a hard time feeling safe even as a man, and you're supposed to be safe and masculine, but I've been a chronic person of the fawn response, the people pleasing, the survival, and there's reasons for that. Now I know that, and a lot of it's through the medicine work and the integration and the processes and the co-regulation support that happen after. So, yeah, with all that said, I'm just, it was exciting to remember that, and I'm curious about what you do. It's not just serving. You guys train facilitators, and so I'm really curious about that facilitation training as well, because there could be someone listening they could be interested in that. It's a path I'm sort of interested in. I did go down a 5-MeO DMT training that was robust, and I'm interested more as I live in Costa Rica and I bump into someone weekly who's talking about ayahuasca. I am curious about your facilitator training, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, how long it is and what it involves.
Love to. Yeah. The nature of training is, I think, of the greatest importance in the psychedelic renaissance. And I think everybody who participates in plant medicine needs to be educated and trained. There's a growing need from people having home practices to people sitting in very specific communities and circles, to others that are traveling between communities and circles all over the world. And, the problems that we see come from people that are untrained and don't have a basis in safety and security. And so I think if everybody gets this education, then we just start to remove the really big problems that we're seeing in the space. So instead of relying on one leader to be able to be the safe people in the ceremony, I want everybody there to know how to be the safe people. And if they need to, they can even provide safety for the leader. Let's have this be truly a safe community. And so people go through level 1 to start with, and it's always a combination of theoretical learning that can be done self-paced online through videos that we've created and lectures that I've given. And then it's also practicum. So the practicum is how you really learn, but I think you can learn how to ceremonial proof your room through watching a video and then learning how to go through a checklist of all the ways to set up a ceremonial space. And then you can come and sit with others and they'll show you how they set up the space and you can practice it too, right? And then there are some things that you need to learn through sitting for yourself and being with the medicines. And then there are some things that you learn in the presence of a trained facilitator or a master facilitator like myself. And so our programs combine all those 3 kinds of education in one. So this way you can do this from your home to get as much of the theory as you need. You can come down into our initiatory experiences and sit in mentorship and get the guidance for what it's like to manage these experiences. And then you also learn how to sit for yourself safely. And sitting for yourself is just that. It's learning how to be in a plant medicine space just with yourself in quiet, in a low dose experience that starts to teach you about the medicines and to get comfortable within yourself, to start to deal with your shadow, to start to deal with your fears, to start to deal with the psychological blockages, and learn to be in relationship with the medicines. So as soon as you consume them and you start to feel anything, we say that's the beginning of the relationship. And you're learning how to be in relationship with the medicines. Our level 1 course is a 12-week program online. So there's 12 weeks, there's 8 core weeks of study, 4 specialty weeks in learning about the different plant medicines. And it is an A to Z program to teach you a home practice. It's going to teach you all the safety measures you need to take, how to think about having a plant medicine or a psychedelic life, how to know what kind of outreach and support there is in your community for you in case there is an emergency or a problem. And we even go into details of how you create plans. For instance, if for any reason there was a natural disaster that happened during your ceremony. So there are things that are ceremonial oriented, and then there are things that have nothing to do with the ceremony, and you have to know how to navigate your space in this altered state of consciousness. So we teach you from A to Z everything that you would have to know to be able to be safe, how to screen the medicines themselves, how to screen friends and family that they're not on inappropriate medications that have contraindication to the plant medicines that maybe they want to explore with you. And you learn how to sit for yourself and how to sit for others. You learn about the nature of frequency, music, and rhythms that can accompany the ceremonies and the experiences. You learn how to understand the vibrational states, to know, how you're affecting somebody or affecting yourself when you take the plant medicines. And you learn how to navigate that within yourself. We teach it all within a great container that I call sanctuary, which is how to create a true sanctuary for yourself and for your consciousness in the plant medicine experience. Level 2 takes you into the visionary arts. It's a 12-week program online, but it's really about a 1 to 2 year of practicum. I would think closer to 2 and maybe even 3, where you learn how to address all of the different states you have inside the visionary experiences themselves. This really is the facilitator training. This is where you're learning how to drop in yourself and other people and now start to navigate the states of consciousness, spiritual states, energetic states from within the altered state or within the plant medicine state. You're going to learn how to connect with all different kinds of guides that are in that space. Those can be spirit guides, power animals. You'll learn different shamanic arts, the traditional arts of the forest. You're going to learn advanced grounding techniques. You're going to learn how to be able to stabilize a field of energy through the room if people have difficulty. You're going to learn how to help them release traumas and process their energies, open their energy body, open their light body. You're going to learn about what it means when people say they astral travel or went out of body, when they say they went into other dimensional states of consciousness, when they say that they met different kinds of entities inside this ayahuasca or DMT space. You're going to learn how to navigate all of that. You're going to learn how to know good ones and helpful ones from ones that aren't, how to be able to protect the space with everybody. And then ultimately, you're going to explore the divine states of consciousness, the ones that people talk about in terms of direct communion with source, oneness, and the universe itself. And it is also a true comprehensive program to teach you all of the facilitation arts that we know from within our lineage and that I've explored beyond our lineage over the last 20 years. The totality of it, including the practicum, the opportunities to come to the forest, for most people would take about 3 years. And if you could do it full time, you could maybe do it within 2. And then at my lodge where I am right now is our campus. It's the home base, home campus for our students. And they can come here and train. They come to do plant medicine, dieta, and rites of passage. Many take their vacation time to be able to come here and be in the forest. It's a place of oneness and safety and beauty, and it's been a tremendous epicenter for us. And so when you're in our programs, it's not just online, it's also here in the forest. And we have programming that also goes down into the Andes of Peru, so you can learn about the nature of the arts there as well. And so we try to provide the most comprehensive education, and we're interested in supporting people from having, a safe home practice if you're a microdosing mom, or if you want to have this be part of your spiritual life, how to be able to do that. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking for peak performance and greater success and being able to get out of the past and into the totality of your power and capacities, we support you with that. And all of it starts in safety and knowing that you're safe in the nature of this exploration.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. I heard you say on another podcast that the training should be as long as like a medical doctor's. If you're going to start to utilize these medicines, and I'm, I come from a background of, I completed a graduate degree as a therapist, and it took me a long time and a lot of effort, and doesn't make me better than anyone else, but it certainly has helped to navigate the world of trauma and certain things that have come up with myself and with other people that I've worked with. And I think that's just really, really essential. That can't be learned in 8 weeks. And it's really good to hear how robust and how long the training is. And, sitting with all the nuances, because it's not like you drink ayahuasca and then 30 minutes later, you're back. Like 5-MeO DMT can be, a 5-minute experience. It could be an hour experience, but in 2 hours, you're pretty much back fully. And so, with ayahuasca, that's just not the case. And, this could be many, many hours in a process. And so it's great to hear that. I am kind of curious though about, you went down the path a little bit about these in the journey, sort of these entities or things that come up potentially in the journey. So if anyone's listened to some of your other podcasts, I've heard you talk about, you've done over 1,000 journeys easy. And at one point you were talking about going into this sort of spirit world or the other world. And can you just talk about that? What is it like, when you've done ayahuasca that many times and and even as from like a shaman and your mentors that you've worked with, like what kind of work are you doing at that stage when you've done ayahuasca 2,000, 5,000 times, and now you're sort of like, what are you doing in that other astral plane, other world, whatever we're going to call this ayahuasca? Is there a name for the ayahuasca world? And then if there is, what types of work are you doing in there?
It's a great question. For most people who've participated in these medicines, you drink and a little bit of time goes by and you start to feel something. A lot of people feel heat. It goes down to their toes. It starts to come back up. And then for a lot of people, they start to mention seeing complex sacred geometry. Some people call it grids. Some people call it fractals. The Shipibo people draw it in their art in the Ikaros. But you see this geometry. For me, it starts with, it looks like the air becomes very dense. and then the air looks like it's energized, and then and just kind of cloudy, like it's opaque, and you're looking through it, and then this really incredible sacred geometry forms, and then you learn to travel through that sacred geometry. I remember the very first times I went through it, some was harrowing and some was very scary, and a few times I thought I might be dying, and those were just thoughts, because here I am, I wasn't dying at all. And over time, you learn to explore. There are different realms that get mapped. So the local people talk about the earth realms, the under earth realms, the water realms, and the cosmic realms. And you learn to navigate these different states of consciousness. And in them, lots of people, both from traditional lineages and now also from Western cultures, start seeing the same things. There are a well-known pantheon of all of the different animals that are in our lives that are seen inside those spaces. So there's, they call them spirits. They see the eagle, they see the jaguar, they see the lion, anacondas, squirrels, foxes, people's pets, dogs, cats, whatever. There are the others. There are ancestors there. People mention meeting their ancestors and talking with them. You have this deep relationship with the earth that we know the earth has a real history. It's everything that really happened here of earth. We just don't know how to discover it. And people tap into more of earth's history, and it transcends our mythologies. It goes into a deeper realism and vision of what the earth is and what it's been doing. And so we explore that. We can explore what people study in physics. You can explore this interconnected cosmic universe we're in, where you explore galaxies and their relationships. Over the years, it's been amazing because our scientific explorations and discoveries has been catching up with our visionary experiences. So we saw these great clouds and clusters of galaxies when we didn't really know how many galaxies scientifically were there before Hubble. And then Hubble took the first pictures of them. And I remember the pictures of Hubble looking like what it looks like as you start to enter into those fields in vision, which was just incredible to have that confirmation. And I remember that Julio used to take me in vision through the cosmos, and he would be tracking gravity as the way to navigate, and I watch him do it. And then years later, the gravitational waves that Einstein had theorized were proven. And so there's these incredible cosmic astral experiences that people have. And then there's stuff that people talk about that's just otherworldly, that just is nothing relatable at all to Earth and to this cosmic space. It's these other dimensional realms, and they get described. Some are these machine-based realms where it looks like engineering and intricate machinery. Some are time-based realms, and you can go into them and it can feel like a nanosecond, or it can feel like thousands and thousands of years go by. There's these places where there's almost like deposits of information, knowledge, and awareness, and you go into them, and there's just downloads that people talk about, these great awakening moments that happen for them. And for me personally, I've just gotten really interested in the realm and all of that people call consciousness. And that has been where I find my greatest solace and peace. And I like to access it through just pure energy states and pure vision. And sometimes it includes the astral experience, like the cosmic experience beyond that of Earth. But I just see it in these, what I just call codes, these light codes, these patterns. And consciousness is not a void. It's not empty. It's actually highly codified. It's highly patterned. There's more colors in there than you have ever imagined. There's what we call infinity color. And there's just a tremendous knowing. And everybody who goes into those experiences with me comes out saying very similar things, which is that they know their great purpose to life. They know why they're alive. They remember again what this is all about. They remember who they are. They can remember the nature of their spirit or soul. There's a deep connection to oneness, source, and what people call God. And I find that to be the most interesting exploration. And so I've been navigating those realms of consciousness now consistently for the last decade. And I'm really interested in the interface of creativity, invention, scientific discovery, medical discovery, new medicine, information technology, Web3 technologies, and artificial intelligence, all through this interface of consciousness. That is what I'm most interested in now.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I can relate to that through some of my other journeys with 5-MeO DMT. And again, as I develop a more of a relationship with ayahuasca, but I could feel and sense some of the things you were saying. And I'm wondering, what is do you think that with a medicine like ayahuasca, that certain individuals would be able to access these realms to bring in information to inform the next Web 4.0, 5, 6, 7, whatever, the AI and the consciousness of where we're stepping into? We're stepping into a place that, like, I hope people are understanding where we're going and how fast it's moving. It is moving way faster than what we can understand. And I think that maybe a medicine like ayahuasca, is there a way to map these worlds the best you can as what you can remember? And I wonder if there are certain individuals that will be able to do that, or have already done that, maybe privately, secretly map some of these worlds. But what do you think about that with where we're going with, AI is like, to say it's taking off, it's the understatement of a lifetime, So where do you see this medicine playing a role in informing the next Web 4, 5, 6, and everything that we're stepping into with AI?
If we go back to what we were talking about before, about the transformative effects and healing effects, we can also look at them from the lens of the creative effects. And so anything that enhances brain activity, that allows for more holistic communication, that allows for neuroplasticity and the development of new neural net, also brings forth great creativity. And it is our collective creativity that are all of our technological and tool-based advancements, whether it's new materials, whether it's understanding new molecular composition, whether it's information technology and silicon-based technology, new AI-based systems that are, going through GPUs instead of CPUs, and are light-based compute instead of just voltage-based compute. They're all being fueled by a great and incredibly intelligent community of people that are having realizations, having breakthrough moments, working together in complex teams, using the most cutting edge tools and technology available to do so. And when you have a medicine like ayahuasca in the mix of all of this, psilocybin as well, not only do you have this deep immersion where you get these realizations for yourself, but your interest in greater discovery becomes a very rich field for those discoveries. And it's been well known for decades now, going back to the 60s and 70s and 80s in research institutions in the United States, that very focused intention with very clear questions being asked, have a 50% or higher potential of realization from these experiences. And what I really enjoy about the ayahuasca experience is that you do get that 5, 6, 7 hour immersion to be able to be in the altered state, get comfortable in it, and start to really navigate it. And so I think that it's a place that will help spur on invention and creativity. We worked with people that have been part of the early internet 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and now the AI revolution. I think that it is ultimately through whatever is our unique expression of consciousness that the inventions are going to continue. And it's also the possibility as well for the great responsibility to usher in benevolence in the nature of this technology, not techno-utopianism, but just positivity. And I think that that's possible with these medicines because they're not just mind-focused, they're not just competition-based, but they also open people up to a great deeper understanding of the cosmos, a great understanding of oneness and their own love. And I think that can inform upon the nature of the creation of these tools. And so I think AI will be deeply, deeply affected and influenced by ayahuasca and other psychedelics. And I'm sure of it, knowing that many people in the AI space quietly are utilizing, these plant medicines for the purpose of their discovery. So because it's a well-known, well-trodden path, this is, while not often talked about, actually a ubiquitous expression inside the technology development field. And there's direct scientific research background to prove it, which gives it a lot of credibility in the eyes of the tech elite that are developing these systems. And so ayahuasca will have its place in all of that. And I find it to be a fascinating conversation, because now you're talking about a really unique multi-species form of interaction to lead to potentially intelligent or conscious technology. So it's not going to just happen alone through human imagination. It's going to happen through human imagination being affected by mushrooms and mycelium networks, ayahuasca and Amazonian medicinal plants, peyote and San Pedro, that are these ancestral medicines, from North America and South America, and potentially as well cannabis. And then I also know that there's a tremendous amount of synthetic psychedelic usage. So there's this great converging taking place. The technology itself, the way I simply look at it is, like most of our technologies, this doesn't end until the technology has been completely transcended. So we are in the age of AI. We will be in the age of AI potentially for thousands of years. At the rate of exponential growth, this rewrites the totality of human civilization, human culture, human interaction, human tool use, economics, politics, and the true fabric of what we've developed as society over the last 5 to 10,000 years. There has never been a bigger disrupt. It's going to change the way humans do everything. And the future generations that are being born right now will only know a world that's dominated by artificial intelligence. So this is the earliest it will ever be in history, and it's only going to get exponentially more powerful. The realizations and inventions necessary for it to continue to expand will take place in every field that it can disrupt. And from what we can see is that it has a potential to disrupt any place a computer is used, which is now in every field. So, it's time to get involved in the AI age. Understand that it's not just a chat app. It's not just an algorithm that feeds you content through a social media platform. It's not just how you use your keyboard thumb typing on your phone. This is already affecting drug discovery, scientific discovery, education, mathematics, science itself, spirituality. People are using chat apps now after ceremony to help integrate and understand their experiences. They're going to these things as counselors and support people for them. So, it's time to embrace this and ensure benevolence.
Yeah. Amen. That's all I'll say after all that. That was, yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's, it's here, and I think psychedelics will play a big role, and hopefully we can steward these with humility, because that's the word that comes up the most with me with these big medicines is humility. You get humbled very quick in the medicine, and so having a safe container and being around people who can hold the space and have the training, it's like, to me, that's just essential. And then then you can have more space to navigate your own lifetime trauma you've carried and work through that. And then eventually maybe work on some other new inventions to cure addiction, or new inventions to heal the nervous system, the different systems in the body that run these networks of a human. And, I think it's the intersection between both and embracing that. And it's here and it's coming fast. So it's really exciting to hear what you shared, and I'm excited to go dive in again with you. I think we should cap it there, and then we'll come back and go into some of these last topics I get into next time and go on some riffs there. But I appreciate your time, and I would love for you to share how people can work with you, how they can find you, and how they can find out the great work you're doing in Blue Morpho.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'd love to have another conversation about this. I think the more we can talk about this openly in the world, the better. To come and find us, please come to bluemorpho.org, our website, hamiltonsouther.com. If you're interested in knowing more about myself and my work, our Instagram is bluemorpho_org. And if you're interested in our educational programs, just DM us, write us, send us an email, and connect with us, and we'll get you connected into our education programs. We have initiations that are going on year round, and you can join the courses at any time. And so we would love to have you be part of the courses if you want to have education in this space, and just write us and we'll be happy to get you started.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamilton. We'll definitely bring you back again, and maybe even in between, maybe I'll get out there and have an experience. And also check out Hamilton's book too. I know you wrote a book, The Journey of One. I actually bought that book way before I met you, and that's a really fascinating read as well. So check that out. We'll put that all in the show notes. But Hamilton, thank you so much. I'm so grateful we're connected finally.
Yeah, amazing, Jesse. Thank you too. I'm really grateful, and I can't wait to sit in ceremony together, and I look forward to working together for a long time.
Thank you for checking out Entrepreneurs in Recovery podcast. We are so appreciative that you are here. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. Leave a review on iTunes and Spotify so more people can find the show. Once again, thank you so much. We have great episodes and content come out in the future. Thank you for being here. Have a blessed day.